Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Nekrotronic. So, for those of you that are to be lovers of Ghostbusters or Doctor Strange or just anything like supernatural, this will really fit the bill of that. Going on into this movie, I was to, of course, I was gonna go and see this movie called Wormwood. I think it was like Road to Death or something. And so while I was going through and like Google searching that and kind of sifting through things, all of a sudden I saw the visuals for this movie. I'm like, what is this? And really, a lot of people go on and know about me. If there's something like that looks cool, like I just want to watch it just to kind of see if it really is to be as cool as I thought it was going to be. And so the first thing that I did is I went in and watched the trailer. I'm like, oh my god, this trailer for this movie looks freaking insane. It looks so cool. And I'm like, well, I'm hoping that the trailer lives up to the movie, because there's a lot of times where, you go on into something and like the trailer makes the movie look 100 times better than what it really is. Come to find out, I went into the movie and I'm like, no, like this movie is to be what it is. And I'm like, yeah, like this movie, this whole idea and the whole like presentation of it, I'm like, yeah, I am so freaking sold. Very interesting film for a lot of people. Go ahead and figure out a way to check this out, because without a doubt I will tell you how to go on and do so. So first off, I will say, if anybody is to conveniently have AMC Plus, because there is some decent content that is to be flowing through that app, I would dare, in fact, have people eventually go on and subscribe to that. But here's also the thing. I'll give you a free option for you to be able to also see this movie also. So just kind of don't be concerned. If you also want to rent or buy this film, I would just justify renting it. Like, you can do that also. Like, Amazon does have it for rent right now, but I'll give you a free option. So I would go through a Google search, and first off, I would have you go on and search an app called Letter C Movies. So that's a letter, and then that's a word, and then app afterwards. So Letter C Movies app. Google search this and be able to see that you can download this app and be able to dare in fact watch anything that you'd like. Premium access stuff, brand new releases, exclusive content that would normally be on a app like a Stars or a Disney Plus or something like that. So also there's another app called Fox HD Movies, and regardless of what I say afterwards, just search those words, because you'll have a logo that'll say Fox HD Movies, but the title they'll say something different. It'll say Play 1080p HD Movies. Download that app and be able to, with the powers combined, to be able to watch anything, with the exception of if something is like brand new, released like today. There may be like some slight bit of time before that actually comes out on one of these apps, especially if it's like a theater movie or something like that. You'd have to watch a bootleg version, and then maybe at some point you'd see like the premium access version of the movie. Also, you can go on to a Google Play Store, and I'm not quite sure if this movie's on there, because this is a kind of a rare kind of movie. But I would probably go on and Google Play Store search the words TV Crush, and be able to find an app where it has the logo of HD Movies with a crown off to the side. Be able to download that app, and you should be able to see a cluster of films for absolutely free. So, Nekrotronic, what is this about cryptically? Well, there's a lot to get off to describe and to tell you about this movie. And even trying to simply break it down is not all that easy. I'm being honest. But they do break it down pretty easily in the beginning of this film. But still, like, there's a long, a crawl of information that they have to kind of give you. But it's fun. So, come to find out, with technology advancing the way it is, uh, we in the past would go on and have somebody sacrificing a goat to have a demon come to our world. Now it seems that someone was to figure out how to go on and hook themselves into the internet and be able to, through a network, have a bunch of demons be shown within a phone to create all of this like mobile game that it seems to be heavily popular between a number of people. So all of a sudden, it seems we have a character named Howard North that has a friend named uh, Rangy, Rangy, um, Rangy. It's an odd pronounced name. Um, and so we have Howard, we have Rangy, uh, who are to be the septic tank characters who are to basically try to get rid of crap. So we have these two characters, and Howard is to go on and find out that it seems that he is to have this prodigy lineage within him that he did not realize until all of a sudden we had Luther coming to him and saying, like, well, hey, like, you are, of course, to be a necromancer from a rare breed of parents. And so now we're going to have you come with us and work with us to try and stop Finnegan. And Howard, of course, is like, say what now? Like, you want me to do, huh? Like, so much about this kind of does technically feel like R.I.P.D. or just kind of a bunch of like supernatural movies just kind of rolled all into one. So more than likely, like Ghostbusters, Doctor Strange, R.I.P.D. The list goes on and on. And at some points, it does have like this Iron Man kind of feel to it, with these kind of these these battle armor suits that they have on. So like there's just a lot of stuff kind of going on in this movie. There's a lot of stuff to digest, but we have Howard who is to realize that he has power, and so Molly at one point is to go on and try to train Howard to try to unleash this necromancer power that is going to help him be able to bring people back from the dead, or to try to go on and figure out how to take certain enemies down, and so on and so forth. And like there also is a tweed bit of like Matrix kind of rolled in here also, where we have like a soul being like processed through the network, and like we have Toro that is to try to like go through the network to try to defeat Finnegan that way. And it seems like they kind of create more problems than they really solve, but still. So a lot of fun to be had with this movie. I'll get into much more specifics when we get into spoilers. It's just a lot to digest and to try to briefly describe this film. But man, was it just a fun adventure. And it's very rare to have a very like a movie that's very like small be like so enjoyable. But it's always like kind of fun to find these hidden gems. So let's go out of our way to just go into spoilers about this. Let me know in the comments below if you were to go on after watching this to see this movie, or at the end of the day, you could go out of your way to figure out how to go on and see something like this. Or maybe you saw Wormwood and like you were like, oh, hey, this looks interesting. So with that said, let's go into that double 5 time territory. Let's just go into this thing that is always to be called spoiler time. Spoiler time is about the time you're going to spoil this movie. So we go on and we have to show like the beginning of everything, where in the olden times people used to sacrifice goats to summon demons. Well, now it seems they've gone on and like that seems to be like a rare thing. It still happens in some part of this film, like in the very beginning of it, but we go on and we have at one point a character who's to be Finnegan, who is to go on and try to find all the demons through this network and to try to push them into this network to, I guess, to try to contain them. And come to find out, we, of course, just go on and make a villain who is to be this kind of soul eater like character. So we now go on and we have Luther with his two daughters, both Molly and Torquil. Torquil? Very weird names we have in this movie. So Luther and his two daughters are going on and being like the last defense because it seems that all the other necromancers are one by one getting killed off. So it seems honestly like they're on their own as they go on and they're shooting through all these demons, or through all these like zombified looking characters that are demons. So they either have to go on and try to like suck the demon out of the person, or they have to go on and like shoot the person in the head to try to like get rid of the demon that way. So we go on and we have, of course, Howard. Howard is to be a septic tank man with Ranji, and they go on and we have it where it seems that Ranji is like not really paying attention to this job really. It seems like he's too much like stuck onto his phone, downloading all these games, watching all these videos. And so Howard is trying to do this septic tank job. And it seems that at one point where they're trying to go on and put all this like this crap into this one system, all of a sudden things start to go haywire and crap ends up getting sprayed all over Howard, to where then Howard has to go on and have this hose just being sprayed down on him so he can just kind of get all of this crap from off of him. So we have Howard to go on while, of course, his sidekick is just having like is just kind of like this job doesn't really matter to him. Like he's just kind of doing other things. So this guy goes on and downloads this app, and we go on and we have to have Ranji, who is comparing this certain app to like Pokemon Go. But they don't actually say Pokemon Go. They just say, oh yeah, that like monster collecting app. Like, yeah, you know what that is, that little small monster collecting app. Because they don't actually say Pokemon Go here. So I guess that's like the easy comparison, that it seems that this guy is to go on and play this game where he's just kind of using his phone and he's just trying to like, hey, is a monster here? Is a ghost here? Is a ghost? Where's the monster? And so Ranji is like desperately wanting Howard to stop the car while they're doing their job so that he can level up. And Howard is like, no, like, don't you see that we're doing our job? And so he's like, well, yeah, but like, just stop the car for like 1 minute and I'll level up. It's like, no. So all of a sudden we go on, we have Ranji, who all of a sudden is looking at Howard through his phone and realizing that weirdly Howard is to have this weird glow about him. And so Ranji is just like, well, like I gotta see what's up with like Howard. I don't know why that he's like glowing in the dark here. So all of a sudden Ranji goes on and he is to like hit this button onto his phone, and that has Howard going flying out of his car. And Howard is now asking his friend, it's like, what did you do? And Ranji's like, well, I just touched my phone. Like, I just thought, like, so all of a sudden Luther and his two daughters are in this van, and all of a sudden this this notification comes in mentioning that there is a necromancer spotted. And they're like, what? Like, okay, that doesn't make sense because so they go on and they're tracking this necromancer, and come to find out it's Howard. And so they go on and they sit down Howard, and so like this is like a Harry Potter kind of situation. So Lucifer, Luther Luther is telling Howard to sit down, and Howard's like, no. And so Luther forces him to sit down, and using his necromancer power. And so Luther, who of course is David Wenham, a lot of people probably know him from Lord of the Rings, or maybe 300, or probably Van Helsing, the Hugh Jackman movie. If you guys ever saw that, he was like the friar guy. Anyways, pushing on. Not friar, like he was a priest. Anyways, pushing on. So Luther has explained to Howard that Howard is also a necromancer, and it seems that Luther was to assume that Howard was dead because what was to happen with Howard's parents. Because it seems that Henry and Finnegan, who actually is Howard's mother, we find out that I guess that they were like legendary like demon hunters. That Henry was to be kind of like the gunslinger, and Finnegan was to be this girl who could like exorcise people just by touching them. And so like she was a really skilled necromancer. So, and it seems that Howard is to have that same power, but he is to never really be able to get to use it until now because he didn't realize it. So like the whole like training part of this like kind of like gets wrapped up easily in like a couple of scenes, because they don't really try to train this guy. It's just like, well, hey, let's go on to these missions, let's do this stuff, like we gotta go because we gotta go on and try to defeat this evil, and then Howard needs to go on and like learn as he goes. So we find out that Finnegan is to hook herself into the network and try to get all of these demons and all these ghosts and all these reapers and all these monsters to all be inside this network. And all of a sudden it seems that Finnegan was in the network for far too long, and so when she was to finally come back, she was to come back as a soul eater, and she was going on and consuming certain necromancers and killing them off, so making them evil. And Finnegan just kind of lost control. So we have Howard just going on and just having to supposedly buy this story, because I guess for Howard it does technically make sense for some of the stuff that he's seen in the past, that he of course was to think that he was crazy, because he was to go on and take these like antipsychotics like basically since he was born. And so I guess that rationally makes sense of a lot of that now. So we have Howard, and this kind of turns into like the Matrix moment where like after Neo is to find out that he is the one, they all try to like rush him out of this one building, and then more Morpheus is going to take the hit for Neo. Like, it's the same kind of thing here, where all of a sudden they realize that Finnegan is making their way here to try to take out Howard. And so Luther is to sacrifice himself to tell his daughters, like, hey, go with Howard and get the heck out of here because you guys are really important. Or because he's going to be really important. Like, just get out of here. So Luther ends up getting attacked by Finnegan, and he ends up getting overpowered by her. And we naturally assume that Finnegan is just going to go on and kill every single one of these people, but we actually find out something else here. Because it seems that when Howard and Rangi were seeing this like cell phone game, this mobile game, they saw this Reaper that was nearby this Necropod. And so come to find out, a bunch of these necromancers go into these necropods to eventually continue to consume certain souls so Finnegan can eat all of them so she could become more powerful. So, and every single one of these necropods are to be like strategically placed to create this like this star symbol and this circle around it, like just kind of having this like demonic looking symbol, of course, like a mandala. So we go on into this story, and so Howard and Molly and Torque or Torkel are to go on. And so at one point we had Rangi, who ends up getting killed. And it seems what Howard is to go on and do is to kind of touch his best friend. And Howard is to make his best friend some like kind of Reaper or like some kind of Wraith that is to kind of follow him around, which makes for some kind of like some funny sidekick banter. Or it seems that this that Rangi is to like learn like these certain skills that he is to be able to do, and he just keeps trying them because it looks cool or it's really addicting. And so we go on into this story, and like Howard is just very like baffled and confused, but they eventually convince Howard at some point after Howard is to go on to this hospital, and it seems that Howard is just kind of waiting things out for somebody to come after him. And so Finnegan is to go on and try to talk to Howard to convince him to come to the dark side because they have cookies. But really just going on and you don't see the other side of the story. Like, I'm your mother, and like, why aren't you so we kind of have like this Star Wars thing going on here, which I think is kind of interesting, where like a son has to go on and like refuse to kind of like work with his mother, to instead just defy it and just try to like, well, you ma, or something. Excuse me, or something like that. So excuse me. So we have Howard that goes on, and both of these like sisters are to make their way through this hospital. And so now we continue to go on and have like Howard fight through this hospital to try to scramble out of here. And so Howard is trying to figure out who his what his best friend is, and so they explain it to him. And because Rangi is just thinking, oh, I'm just some ghost, like, isn't this cool? As like Rangi is to kind of like shift his face and to look more like distraught or whatever. And at one point we have Rangi who at some points is to like shift his face to kind of look more like gross or disheveled or whatever. So we have Howard that is forced to go with these two girls, and so eventually Molly is to convince Howard. It's like, well, hey, just give me 1 day of training, and like you should be like set to go, and you'll be convinced, and all will be right with the world. Because we at first have them try to go on, and like their first plan is for them to try and steal one of these necropods. And so like they like set this whole up to be kind of like the Shaun of the Dead moment, where Shaun of the Dead is like explaining like all the stuff of where they're going and what the plan is and what they're gonna do and how everything is gonna like turn out just peaches. But then when it actually comes down to the actual thing, it goes horribly awry, because of course it does. So we go on here, and so they showcase the plan that it seems that Howard is to be down in the sewer, and he's going to hit this like EMP to shut this power down so they can go on and get this necropod. And while the girls are going to go on and fight like this wraith or this reaper, or yeah, I think it's a wraith. And so they're gonna like their whole plan was to like perfectly get this necropod and just get out of there. Well, it seems what happens is that Howard is to go on, and he is to accidentally hit the EMP button or the EMP bomb way too early, because of course his friend was to go on and scare him into hitting the button way too early. And so then Howard blames his friend. So now all of a sudden the EMP is down, and so now all of a sudden we have like Molly, who's having a tough time taking down this one wraith, this one monster. And so everything is just going to crap. But eventually they still go on, and they still get this necropod, and they still got out of here. But really, they're just like they're just so ticked at Howard. So they go on and they take Howard, and they explain to him like what's really going on, because they have to explain that all of the necropods and all the ghosts and all the demons are all being funneled into this one place, which is that building location that, of course, Finnegan is to be kind of onto. Funny thing about this movie, we have this like brief reference of like Christmas in this movie. We have a number of people that are working under Finnegan that are wearing these Santa hats, and she's telling people Merry Christmas, and like we really have this like brief thing that like is saying that this is Christmas time, but it actually doesn't make sense, because like what does it matter? It's Christmas. Like, I guess like it probably would make a lot more sense. It was probably like Halloween or October, but still, like, I guess like maybe they were just like, oh no, like it makes more sense for it to be Christmas. Okay, sure. I don't know. It's just weird. But it's fun though. Like, it's fun to have a holiday movie, I guess. So we go on here. So Finnegan is to go and try to learn, after like finding out where all these like demons and monsters are all funneling into. He goes on and he is to be having Molly convince him to do this whole day of training, which really didn't seem like a whole day. It just seems like a couple of cutscenes and he's good. So Howard is to have to try to learn how to necromance punch, or use a necromance weapon that is to basically be from like the power that he has inside of him. We even have at one point where Finnegan is to go on and give Howard some power of hers, so that way Howard can get like a taste of like what Finnegan has in store for Howard to just kind of tempt him or seduce. Maybe seduce isn't the right word. Really isn't the right word. To try and tempt Howard into be on Finnegan's side. So Howard goes on and is to have Molly like show him how to lift up this coin because he has a problem moving this punching bag. So Howard lifts up this coin and then he has to go on and scream and move this heavy bag. So he's like, oh, okay, like he's ready now. So the next step is for him to go on and get this like 3D printed demon to come out of this hole for like to kind of show Howard like how he can go from a box and take this demon and like using his power put the demon into this free 3D printer and they can go on and kill it off so that way they can kind of show Howard how he can use his power and how he can do things. So Howard is to go on and use these machines and use this kind of this battle armor that we kind of see at the picture here, the bottom picture here, with Howard and at the bottom here. So we go on and they have this kind of this big Biddy or big Betsy or big like weird goofy weapon, this big massive weapon that is just like, why have something that massively huge? But I guess it just is what it is. So Howard is to go on and do what they tell him to do, and then they destroy this thing. And so like, okay, like so like you know how to do this, and so you're going to use this somewhere down the road, further into this film. Because it seems like they have to consistently keep using that. So they go on here, and after, like, it seems that Howard is to really understand what's going on. And also, like, his battle armor is to be this anti-possession suit, where it seems if someone is to go on and be possessed, like, they can just kind of toggle this one part of the suit, and, like, the demon comes flying out. And, again, that'll be, like, foreshadowing for what they do in the later part of the film. So, or, like, really, if it seems like the demon has been in someone for far too long, they end up just having to put a bullet hole in them and kill them that way and to take out the demon that way. So, Howard is to go on with the two sisters to make their way close to this headquarters. And so, Torgal is to decide that she's going to go into the network to try to stop them via that way. And because it seems Finnegan is to figure out some way, even though she's what was the word? Even though she's a necropod down, she is going to still like be able to connect all the towers together, like using her like ability, using her power. So we have Molly go through we have Torkel going through and trying to makeshift all of these necropods to try to like take them down through the network. And so Finnegan is realizing this, so she's kind of like chasing after Torkel through the network also. So we just kind of see like certain dots and things moving in this kind of pattern of stuff. We don't really know what's really going on. So we had it to where Torkel had to like defib herself to go on and try to get into the system. And So what's going on here is now we have Howard who needs to try to go on and bring Torkel back. So Howard is trying to use his necromancing power to try to bring Torkel back here. And instead, what ends up happening is she ends up blowing up her head. Her head just blows up. So they're like, oh my god. Like, so Molly's asking Howard, like, what did you do? And Howard's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what happened. And so all of a sudden now, like, they realize that they're a sister down. And, like, Molly at this point, like, needs some time to just grieve. But come to find out, they end up deciding, or they end up realizing, because, of course, Ranji is to realize that it seems that Torkel was to be in one of these little cubes that is to kind of trap the ghosts or the demons or the whatever. And so Renji is to tell them that this girl is talking to him and she's trapped in this box. And so they're like, oh my god, so technically we can bring her back because of the 3D printer that we had before. So Howard is to use his power to 3D print this girl, and so she comes back, but she comes back a little bit different. It seems oddly like she has this much more like reptile like skin to her. Like she looks really interestingly different. But she looks pretty cool also. So going into this story, we have Torkel here. It's such a weird name. I have to say it every single time. We have Torkel, who decides to go through this building and is just like taking out all of these like demon guys, these guys who are to be named like Lurch and all these possessed people and whatever. So like she's guns a blazing through this whole building, and I'm like, yeah. And so we have her go in first, and like the master plan is for her to go in to try to like stop these people, and then Howard and Molly will come in afterwards. So, and also like we have Rangi that is helping Torkel like through the building, also like using his ghostly power to just kind of take all these people out. Also, we also had a moment where like Howard in the sewer was also fighting this like wraith, while like Wrangle is like kind of helping him out, trying to like defend him, and like that part was pretty sweet too. So we go on and like we have Torkel that is to take most of everyone out, but then it seems that we had it where Torkel, of course, was to be taken down, and so Howard and Molly just start coming in guns blazing to kind of like take out anybody else that's kind of left here. So this goes on, and this leads us to have if Howard didn't have to try to take down his mother before, as his mother was in some possessed woman talking to Howard through this like this network of possession. And Howard goes on, he's like, no, like you mom, and he kicks her. So like we didn't have that before. Now we have like Howard and Finnegan, like we have another like showdown here. So we go on and we have a point where it seems like Howard and Molly are possibly going to be like girlfriend and boyfriend. It seems like there's like this like thing about it where like there's possibly going to be this thing kind of happening where we have this kind of Neo and Trinity kind of thing going on between Howard and Molly. So, and I'm trying to figure out how like this all like kind of finishes up and this ends here. So we go on and we have Howard facing off against his own mother. And so what ends up happening is they end up shooting Finnegan at some point, and so it seems they are to go on and not only reobtain Torkel within her still like spirit self, but then they also obtain Finnegan in her like kind of like spirit box also. So they take Finnegan down, but now they have to go on and like they have to take down like the monsterish part of Finnegan. So we go on and they 3D print both Finnegan and Torkel again. So Finnegan goes on now as a like a monsterish character, a demonic looking horned thing that we kind of see at the very top here. So like Finnegan is now like gone. So we have this monstrous being that goes on and rips Torkel's head right off. But then we end up seeing her like staple her head back on. And I'm like, man, they just can't kill this character. Which I'm like, hey, I don't blame them because like this character is pretty cool. Now they've gone on and like really like made this like character a much more durable like character. But anyways, pushing on. So we have, of course, them trying to do the exact same thing that they had done before, and really it doesn't work. Like the big weapon that Molly tries to use just doesn't work because, of course, also Finnegan is to take Molly's hand off, and so now like Molly is just kind of bleeding to death. And so Howard, like we assume that Howard is going to be the only one, like at the end of this movie, who's going to just be left to do this whole job by himself. So, but also we had, there's one thing that I forgot about because I forgot about the whole like Uncle Dave scene. But I kind of explained it before with the whole like necropods because when Molly and Howard and Torkel were like to open up this necropod, they ended up finding a relative of theirs called Uncle Dave that just had his head in there, and so like we had like Uncle Dave, but this like demon inside also like struggling to talk to them, and we just had these like consistent insults of like you mother, and it's like, oh, well, hey, I'm just like they're going to take control and so on and so forth. So, and then Luther has had his own head in one of these necropods also. So, but yeah, so what ends up happening is that Howard is to have to take Finnegan down at first. Like, he uses his own power to just try and push her away. And so all of a sudden, Finnegan is to come back. And so they go on and they use this big... I'm trying to reconfirm if they just kind of use the big gun or like what exactly they do to defeat Finnegan. Because I don't want to say something and then it'd be wrong. Because I'm just having I'm having trouble getting to the end of this movie because there's so much to like talk about during a big chunk of this film. Even though it's like an hour and a half, man, do they like compact a lot of stuff in this film. So they go on and they wipe Finnegan out, I think by using the big gunned weapon. And so we go on and Finnegan is now dead, but we had, of course, Howard that is to see that Holly is dying, or is possibly dead at this point. So Howard goes on into the 3D printer and is to use his necromancing power to bring Holly back, and is to kind of like put together her arm. And so Holly is now telling Howard, it's like, oh, you brought me back. And Howard's like, well, of course I did. So we now go on and have them at their headquarters, this safe zone, as they are to say. And so really, like, it seems that like the good guys have won this day. It doesn't really seem like there is much of a threat. It doesn't seem like they set anything up for there to be a sequel for this movie. So more than likely, this is probably just going to be a one-off like thing. But I'm sure we can go on and just kind of have any kind of goofy avenues, possibly if there ever was to be a sequel. But when really thinking about it, this movie was done in 2018. Not quite sure if 4 years is possibly going to be at some point going to justify a sequel, but man, was this movie a lot of fun. Man, was this movie just a lot of interesting things kind of rolled into a film. But other than that, I think I'm just going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Because really, at the end of the day, this was just a small film that probably no one will see the review to, but if they do, that's great, because at the end of the day, hopefully they'll be able to find this movie and watch it for absolutely free, or be able to just kind of see it conveniently through whatever means. So I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.